Hey friends, welcome to my channel again. Today I'm very excited to give you a first look of 3 new microphones from Universal Audio. First up is the SD-3 Cardioid microphone. This one comes in a single or a 3-pack. Comes included with 3 bags, one for each microphone. I'm already using some of those here in the drum set and you're gonna hear that eventually, but I have one right here for you. This is a dynamic microphone. It has cardioid polar pattern and it's multi-use, so you can obviously put this on a snare, but you can also use this on a guitar cab, on horns, basically anything, any kind of instrument that has high SPL, anything that you need to record that's very loud, pretty much, you can use this for. I love that it comes, all these microphones in the standard series, they come with their clip that is very sturdy, it's made out of metal, and it's very solid. So you have adjustment obviously for your angle, but then when you put the microphone in the clip, you can also adjust how tight you want the microphone to hold, which is a huge deal obviously when you're using drum microphones or any kind of microphone that you want to put an angle and there's a lot of vibrations going on. You want to make sure that it's tight so this microphone doesn't slide down like some other ones out there. Next up is the SD-7. This is a hypercardioid microphone and is also useful for instrument. You can use it in percussion, horns, toms, snare, basically anything that you need a little more rejection from the instruments that are basically next to it, because the hypercardioid has a more focused polar pattern. This would be better for those applications. Comes included with a pouch, the instruction manual, and the microphone itself has a clip built into the body of the microphone. It's all made of metal and the clip is, again, on the microphone itself. And like I said, you can point this basically at a rack tom, a floor tom, whatever you want, and get less bleed from the sides because the hypercardioid polar pattern doesn't really pick up too much from the sides. And last but not least is the SD-5, which is everything low end basically. This is a cardioid microphone. They're all dynamic microphones, sorry, and this one picks up a lot of low frequencies. These are all very high SPL handling microphones, so you can put them in front of any source that's very loud. This one in particular, you can put in front of a kick drum, you can put it in front of a bass cabinet, basically anything you want that needs a lot of low end. So these are the 3 new Universal Audio microphones in the standard series. What I'm going to show you now is how do these microphones sound on a complete drum kit while using some of the other microphones. So for this demo, I'm also using an SD-1 for the hi-hat, and I'm using a pair of SP1s for the overhead. These are pencil condenser microphones. This is a dynamic cardioid microphone. And one thing that separates these microphones from any other microphone is that they have the Hemisphere plugin. The Hemisphere plugin actually emulates other microphones. So in the case of the standard series, you have microphones specifically designed for the model. So for example, if we're using a pencil condenser microphone, then the models that it can emulate are pencil condenser microphones. There's some extra models in some of those standard microphones that have a ribbon one, for example, but you're gonna see that on each microphone you at least have 5 microphone models that you can choose from. So then you can make your choice. The cool thing is that you can record through the modeling as if you were recording through the microphone emulation, or you can choose to do it later depending on how you set it up. If you're using Luna, you can do it as an insert, or if you're using console and any other DAW, you can put it on console and set it to UAD monitor, and then you don't have to print that model into the recording. You can choose to do it later. So for this demo, I invited my really good friend George to play some drums. He has a really cool channel. Go check him out on all platforms: YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram as Skinny George. And he's gonna be playing my drums and we're gonna go through some of the models. Alright, so let's check out this recording. George basically played 2 versions, one slow tempo and one with a faster tempo. The microphones were plugged into an Apollo XAP with no preamp emulation, EQ, or compression. So what you're gonna hear is completely raw and no Hemisphere emulation for the beginning, and then we'll start applying the Hemisphere emulation so you can see what the models sound like. So here's the first one, which is the slow tempo. this is what the microphones sound in their natural state. To me, that already sounds fantastic. I can definitely use that either for recording or for live sound, which is cool nowadays. With live sound, you can actually bring tracks, record multi-track, bring it back to the studio, and actually do basically everything that I'm doing right now, but on a live setting. Let's listen to the faster tempo one, and then we'll start applying some of the models. Again, that to me sounds fantastic already. Now, let's check out some of the models. So let's go back to the slow take and let's listen to the kick only. And every microphone through the Hemisphere software gives you 5 different models. So if I take this plugin and enable it, I can choose some of the models here. As you can see, there's one model here that says DN sub. That's basically a sub kick. And this is a really nice trick that I'll show you in a second. Basically what it does is just makes the kick as if you were placing a sub kick outside, for example, and it captures a lot of the low end. And it's not just like a low pass filter, so cutting the highs. No, it actually reacts just like a regular sub kick, where the decay of the drum kick of the bass drum is just longer, and you have this huge amount of low end. So that what's cool about it is that I only had one microphone on the kick drum, and it was basically placing right in the middle between outside and inside, and right at the hole, and I can just duplicate that channel. So that's what I'm gonna do now. I'm gonna right click on this and hit duplicate, and now I have another channel where I can select a different microphone. Before we do that, let's close it real quick and only listen to the kick drum with no emulation in solo, for example, and let's see what it sounds like. This is the microphone itself with no emulation. All right, I'm gonna do the same. I'm gonna press play and I'm gonna cycle through some of the emulations so you can hear how different they sound. And one microphone could be better for a slow tempo song or a vintage sound if you're looking for, or more of a modern sound. Results are gonna be quite different. So here we go. The first one is the D12. So as you can hear, that sub kick model captures a lot of low end. So like I said, I duplicated this track. I could actually take a sub kick model on one channel and then go to this channel and the first one, the kick in, and put something like the D112 that doesn't really have a lot of extended lows, and I want to complement that with the sub kick. So I could lower the volume all the way down on the sub kick channel and then blend that in so I can get a little bit of attack and a little bit of low end as well. So here's the kick with only the D12, and I'm slowly gonna blend the sub kick on. So as you can hear, once I started blending the sub kick, you basically get this massive kick drum that you couldn't basically get before with just a single microphone. So that's a pretty amazing technology. And we're gonna move on to something else. Let's go to the snare. Again, this is what the snare microphone, that's the microphone that I was using on the snare. You can actually use the SD-3 or the SD-7 on either on the snare. I decided to use the SD-3 because of the models that I have here. So this is what the SD-3 sounds like on the snare with no emulation. And I can also, with these models, with any of the standard microphones, I can also change the proximity. So let's play a little bit with the proximity. As you can see, it just basically changes the tone of the snare by just moving a little knob. That's pretty amazing. On the snare bottom, I'm using an SD-7, and I like the SD-7 on the snare bottom because it's hypercardioid. Having it right next to the kick drum is really difficult sometimes to get the bleed from the kick drum into the snare bottom. So this is really amazing. So this is without any emulation. So as you can see, it captures basically just the snare, a little bit of the kick, but not as much, where it's not as present. Here we go, and let's use 441, and I have it on brilliance mode, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. So the filter here, I can add a little bit of brilliance to the microphone, which was basically an option on the body of the microphone. Yeah, when I was searching through the microphones, to me, the 441 and the 421B were my favorites because they have that sizzle top end, but honestly, any of these microphones will sound pretty good. The 409 has a nice low end to it that the other ones don't have. And the 160, which is a ribbon microphone, has a darkness to it that actually could be really useful and depends on the situation that you have. For this demo, I'm actually probably going to keep the 409. And then for the faster one, I'll keep 441. Let's check the hi-hat. So I was using the SD-1. In this particular case, I actually preferred the 88. I didn't think I was gonna like that one, but on the other ones. But yeah, just using your ears. Sometimes you have to listen to actually really appreciate the sound. So let's go to something else. We have rack tom. I'm also using the SD-7 on the rack tom for the polar pattern hypercardioid. Again, you have more focused on the rack tom and less on the other instruments like kick, snare, hat, cymbals that are bleeding normally into the microphone. So I usually prefer that type of microphone for rack tom. I kind of like sometimes a little bit of the 421 because of the high end, but I think I'm also getting that from the overheads. So I'm gonna choose the 160, which is a ribbon microphone. This is what the beauty of it, you know, you go through the microphones and you select the one that you want the most. Let's go through the floor tom. So on this particular one, I'm using the SD-3. So the SD-3 is just regular cardioid, not hypercardioid. And I chose that one in particular because the D4 is my favorite floor tom microphone usually. So I have the option of choosing that one or any other one. Let's just listen to without any emulation. It just wins every time. Now, this is in context is where it really matters, but when you solo it by itself, to me it sounds like it doesn't need anything else. No EQ, no compression, nothing, just by switching to that model. But we're gonna hear it in context later. So last but not least is the overheads. I'm using the SP1s in X and Y configuration, a little wider. I put the clips, just open them up a little bit more than 90 degrees. So basically it's like an ORTF, which is 120 degrees. Just listening to the overheads in solo, I prefer the 54 because it's a little darker. But now when hearing in context, I might need a little extra high end, and instead of just reaching for an EQ, I'll just change the microphone. So let's just leave the 54 right now. Let's listen to what we have with all the microphones that we chose with the Hemisphere plugin enabled. So let's listen to the faster take and see what it sounds like. That's without adding any single plugin, no EQ, no compression whatsoever. And I was not using any emulation of the Unison preamps. I would have probably used something like an API or a Neve to give it the color depending on the song. On the slower tempo, I've probably used the Neve. On the more modern stuff, I would have probably used the API. That's why I love the Hemisphere technology. It just makes my life a lot better because I can leave a set of microphones, and if I'm working with an artist and we're changing snares, changing cymbals, I don't have to change microphones because basically these are my mics, they're set, and depending on the song, I can change them while I record or I can change them later if I wanted to. Because sometimes you can make a choice, and as you start adding more instruments, more vocals, more production, maybe the choices you made, not that they don't work, it's just they don't fit as good anymore, and now you have to work it with EQ, with compression, with gating. So by having these choices, it's just a huge time saver. Thank you so much for watching. Again, if you have any questions, put them down in the comments. Like and subscribe to this channel so I can keep making more content for you. I will see you on the next one.